Hey everyone, today I get the distinct pleasure of talking to Breanne Dyck. Breanne and I have been chasing each other on the internet, though never intersected until today. She's the founder of MNIB Consulting, and she helps online training businesses scale their impact, their team, and their revenue. Her results-driven strategies blend operations management, business model development, and learning and product strategy to create transformational learning experiences that customers can't stop talking about. She regularly consults on flagship products and programs, creative live courses, live events, and workshops for thought leaders and influencers such as best-selling authors Chris Guillebeau, Tara Gentile, and Natalie Sisson. When she's not writing, consulting with clients, or speaking, you're likely to find Breanne with her nose in a business book, which I love because I love to read, playing designer board games, or building Lego. Woohoo! She's also the author of the Beyond Satisfaction book, which I'm sure we'll talk lots about today. But Breanne, thanks so much for being here. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing real well. I'm sitting in my office, and just on the other side of my computer screen, I can see my Lego display. So it is a very good day in my world.
Oh, so what's the Lego display? What is it?
So I collect the modular buildings, which are basically Lego for adults. So it's like a 1932 fire hall and a townhouse, pet shop, all kinds of these old-timey buildings, but they're super intricate, super detailed. This isn't the Lego that you grew up with, people. You go and you just search online for pictures of the modular buildings from Lego. Your mind will be blown.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like work.
Well, maybe a little bit. It takes probably about 12 hours, a full weekend, to assemble one of these things.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So for me, I would likely, about 12 minutes in, I would get frustrated and probably, I would go for the beer run though. That'd be me.
Well, there you go. No, for me, it's like put a movie on in the background, get my Lego, and I sit down in the middle of the living room with it all spread out around me. And, it's just a great weekend in Breanne world.
Woohoo! Well, hey, that's cool. That's great, right? We got to find what we love and do it. I just know my level of patience is really small. So yeah, that won't work for me. But that's really cool. I dig that because I get Lego cufflinks. That's about as Lego as I get.
Oh, there you go. Well, it was interesting because I know we want to, have kind of a business conversation here. But one of the biggest light bulbs in my business was when I realized that there's actually a reason I love Lego. So, everyone always tells you, what did you love to do as a kid? And how can you, work that into your career or your livelihood? It's I loved to build Lego. And I'm never going to be a master builder with Lego. So how on earth am I going to make this work? But one day I was out for a walk and I had the epiphany that the reason I love building Lego is the same reason that I love business so much, because it's about what are the pieces and how do you fit them together and how do you assemble them and how is the building blocks of one business assembled differently to make that business different from this one, because all businesses are built on the same building blocks. It's customers and products and offers and marketing and sales, but it's how you configure them that is so fascinating to me. So yeah, I love Lego, and that's part of the reason why I have it in my office, is to remind me that part of the reason that I love Lego and business is the same, is it's about figuring out how these things are all put together.
Wow. Geez, you stole my segue, though. That was good. I love it.
I did it for you.
Yeah, no, you did, and I love that. I think that makes so much sense. It's interesting. I do enjoy putting business together, but I don't enjoy Lego. So maybe I'll give it another look. So that's good encouragement for that. That's really cool. So online courses, though. How did you get started building online courses?
It's a good question. When I've been in business off and on for myself since I was a teen. I wouldn't call myself a natural entrepreneur. My mom was a piano teacher, so I was a piano teacher. I was a computer geek, so when my dad's business, or the company that he worked for, needed a new website, I built the website. And so I kind of, put myself through school doing these kind of odd technical jobs, ended up, finished school, went and got a job at a technical college in their curriculum and development unit. So we were building course websites. This was when, internet speeds were starting to become faster. So you could start to do fun things like do video learning. Or one of the coolest projects I ever worked on was a bartending simulator. So actually the student would be virtually put into this space, and a customer would come up and place an order for a drink, and you would have to go and figure out what ingredients to mix and how much of each. And if you served the wrong drink to the customer, or you put in, some vodka when it should have been rye or something like that, the customer would say yuck and wouldn't give you any tips. So, it was that kind of thing. And it was all about how can we make use of these new tools that are becoming available to us in this online world. And it was a technical college, so it was all very outcome based. How can you teach a carpenter to be a carpenter through online learning? How can you teach a welder how to weld through a video or without having them physically there with you? And these are the projects that I was working on. But eventually, as tends to happen, I got promoted and got tired of the bureaucracy and the red tape, and it sucked the life out of me. So I realized I've built all of these skills, and I've been doing all this stuff and building, websites and curriculum stuff for all this time. If I tried, I could probably actually make a go of having my own business. And so I went and I tried, and I had no idea anything about running a business. So what do? Well, I went and found an online course to take, and I found several online courses to take. And some of them were good, and most of them weren't all that I had hoped they would be. The marketing was really good, but the products themselves didn't live up to expectations. And I remember it really clearly. I happened to be on vacation. I was in Vegas, actually. I was on vacation in the hotel room before we were heading out for our day on the town. And I was going to buy this course because it was from a blogger that I really respected, big profile. If we said the name, everyone would know it, but to protect the innocents, I won't say the name. So I was going to buy this course, and it became available as a beta, and I bought it right away. And in 15 minutes, I whipped through the entirety of the first module, and I got to the end of it, and I sat back and I said, that's it? I was so disappointed. And it was that moment which was my tipping point. And I had to make a decision. I could either just turn a blind eye to this and continue doing websites. And it was going okay. It wasn't really making a whole lot of money off of it. Or I could reach out to this person who didn't know me from Adam and just say, hey, I have some experience in creating courses. I know this is a beta, not sure what kind of feedback you're looking for, but if you're interested, I would love to, give you some thoughts. And for whatever reason, I sent that, and they responded back positively. And so that started this whole other trajectory, which was how can we actually create world-class training and world-class training companies so that we're not just putting stuff out there and burning people out, because there's a lot of people out there now who won't buy courses because they've been burned too many times before. So how can we set your business up for that kind of experience so that you're creating these results for your students that they can't help but want to tell everyone they know about it?
Wow. I love that. That's so cool. So what's the difference between courses that suck and courses that rock?
There's so many differences, but I don't want to just go on and on and on forever, because I know we've got a limited time here and limited attention span for the folks who are graciously giving us some time today. But, one of the biggest things I see is that people think that the course they create is about what they want to teach. And it's actually not. And in fact, there's been some research done where they took two groups of college students. And one group of college students, they gave the instructor, the professor, the directions, think about what you're going to teach, design your curriculum, and be on your way. The other professor, or the group of professors, they said, think about what you want your students to learn, what you want them to be able to do, and go and create your curriculum. So the only difference in the instruction that was given to these two groups of students and instructors was focus on what you want to teach, or focus on what they want to be able to do, what they want to be able to learn. And the group of students for whom the instructor had been given the instruction, think about what they want to be able to do, outperformed the others dramatically, so well outside, just happenstance or chance. And this is something that we see people get wrong so often, even if it's not a course, even if it's just speaking or marketing, because as far as I'm concerned, everything in your business is a process of education, and it's about getting people to take action. And so if you're trying to teach people and tell them what you want them to know, and you're thinking about getting information into their brains, that's actually not going to be nearly as effective as if you ask yourself, what do they want to be able to do? What change do they want to experience as a result of all of this? And how can I facilitate that journey?
So beginning at a different end in mind, the end in mind of your customer, your students, of what they want to learn or be able to do as a result of that. Really, that sounds to me like really outcomes-based learning.
Yeah. And it's very outcome based because it's not just what do they want to be able to learn, but it really is what do they want to be able to do. One of my all-time favorite definitions of learning is we know learning has occurred when we have the opportunity to make a different choice than we might have otherwise chosen. We have the opportunity to make a different choice than we might have otherwise chosen. Doesn't mean that we will make a different choice, but we know we've learned because we now know that there are other options for how to think, how to behave, how to act, how to do things. And so at the end of the day, it's not just about what happens between the ears in your brain. It's about what is that going to enable you to do? What result is that going to get for you that betters your life in some way?
Wow, that's a big game change for a lot of courses. I think even myself, I've created a few courses that I think are okay, but now that you say that, it's like, okay, what do I want them to do? So as I come up with those modules, I should be thinking about, okay, what is the change in this thing that I can have them do at the end of this module? That's really interesting. Wow, that will really help me as I work on courses. So is this just, is the reason that more people don't do that, you think, Breanne, because they don't know or they don't care or there's bad advice out there or what?
All of the above. I think a lot of it actually comes down to the fact that we teach the way we were taught. And so for most of us being in school, it's different now. A lot of parents look at what their kids are doing in school and they say, well, that doesn't look anything like school as I remember it, because what we remember is sitting in rows, or if you were really lucky, in little pods, and the instructor, the teacher, would stand up at the front and they would lecture at you, and then you would do your homework. And in fact, you would probably do your homework at home rather than, working in, so the classroom time was lecture time. And so what that taught us is that what education looks like is having a sage on a stage. But what we know from the research and even the way that K-12 school is starting to move now is that what you actually want to do is provide and be a guide on the side rather than a sage from the stage. And there's one other really interesting piece of research that I love about this, and goes to your point that you made about, at the end of my module, what do I want them to be able to do? So there was a study done with some neuroscience students. Now, neuroscience is a terribly, terribly difficult subject. It's one of those weeding out courses for first-year med students because the brain is very complicated. There's a lot of nuance and detail. It's really complex. And so, these researchers, it was a bunch of educational researchers and the medical instructors were trying to figure out how can we help students be more successful. And so what they came up with is a simulation of the brain. It was like a tabletop where you would, poke at it virtually and things would light up on the screen. So you could kind of see, if I poke this part of the brain, if I create a stimulus here, that's going to create this result. So what they did is they broke the students into two groups. One group of students went straight to play with the table, straight to play with the simulation. No instruction, no lecture, no nothing. Just go and poke at this brain and see what you can find. And then the other group of students went and did traditional lecture, textbook, video learning. So read this passage, we'll explain it to you, so on and so forth. And then they did an assessment of the students. What they found is that the students who did the experimentation actually performed better than the ones who had done the traditional textbook learning. But here's where it gets really, really interesting. Then they switched the groups of students. And they took the students who had started with experimentation and they went and gave them the traditional lecture. And they took the students that had started with the traditional lecture and they went and gave them the experiment. And they went through the exact same process. And at the end of it, they assessed them again. And at the end of it, the students who had started with experimentation still outperformed the other students because they had gone through the process of learning for themselves what was true, and then it had it reinforced by the textbook, as opposed to trying to cram in all of this information and then try and validate it. So there's something to be said for letting people do things and emphasizing getting them to take action before they even think they are ready, because the research shows that people will be predisposed to getting better results when we do that.
Wow. That's mind-blowing. I went to school to be an elementary school teacher. Mm-hmm. And that is not what we're taught. And that's very interesting to me to hear you say that, and really changes my brain into thinking, how can I get them started experimenting first and learning second? That's really interesting. The whole guide on the side, boy, I bet you worked hours to come up with those two different things, because that's really helpful, right? That as I imagine it, right? The sage on the stage, I get, I've done that. I as a speaker, I see that all the time. And then I think the opposite, or really, I don't know, maybe it's just a 90-degree pivot. Maybe it's not completely opposite, but the 90 degrees of being on the side and just observing people doing what they're doing and possibly offering a little bit of feedback and a little bit of guidance. That's really interesting. I really like that metaphor and that visual. That helps me seal that a lot. So I see that, Tara Gentile, Jason Van Orden, Chris Guillebeau. I mean, that's awesome. So how did you get connected with Chris, for instance? I know Chris, I've been to WDS. I've been on everyone except for his last book tour. I've seen him speak. Yeah. So how did you get connected with Chris?
Well, in general, it's as we were talking about before we started recording, it's both such a small world and such a large world, right? A lot of the people, when I was just getting started, so Chris was one of my early clients, Tara was one of my early clients. In a lot of cases, what happened is I actually ended up taking a program from them or taking a course from them. And so learning about the program, learning about the experience, they got to know a little bit about what I do. And so it became kind of you have a need, I have a fix. Let's see what we can come up with together. And from there, it really just grew as word of mouth and, mutual connections. Jason was a connection through a mutual colleague, and, really not only just, being open to these connections, but also being aware of the possibilities to cultivate these relationships and to, one of the hardest things for me to learn was that I don't have to try and figure out how to provide value in these relationships. I can just show up, and by nature, what I have to contribute will be valuable. And that's to understand that that's why people were connecting me. So I didn't have to get in all my head about how can I provide value? How can I make this awesome for them? I could just focus on showing up, being me. And that has opened so many doors for me that, a lot of people look at that. And then, as you said, how do you get all of these? And I'm sorry, I don't have a repeatable formula for you, because it was just a matter, in some cases, of right place, right time.
Yeah. Cool. I'm just curious. So that's interesting. So I see your book, right? Beyond Satisfaction. Do you have a course as well, or just the book as far as things that other than working with you?
We used to have a program. We actually just recently shut it down because it wasn't, there's a million different courses out there for people who want to create courses. There's a lot of people doing a lot of really great work in that area. And as we've been evolving our business model and we've been learning about how we can serve best the people that we serve, we found that they didn't want just another course. They didn't want just another training. And so we've actually scaled way back on any of our group or leveraged offers and are going and working very deeply with a small group of people, one-on-one, not just on their courses, but on the operations of their business as a whole, in terms of how can you make sure that the product you're creating is part of an entire experience of your business that people are going to have. So how do you make sure that, the way I like to say it is, how can you make sure that your business works as well from the inside as it looks like it does on the outside? That looks like product, that looks like team, profitability, all of those things. Product is just one piece of having a world-class business. And so we really are leaning into helping businesses learn what that looks like on this bigger scale, product, of course, being a part of it.
Wow, that's cool. And that's so interesting, because that's so contrary to where everybody else is headed. And yet It totally makes sense, because while group coaching is great, while group dynamics are wonderful, and often we learn more from the others, sometimes we learn the wrong things.
Yeah, well, and it's really easy when you do this to get into formula seeking mode, or I'm going to do it the way that someone else did it. And a lot of the people that we work with, we characterize them as being $1 million online businesses. And that's, you could be new in business and you could consider yourself pre-million because that's what you're building. You could actually have made $1 million, but that the inside of your business isn't working that way. And for us, what's so vitally important about that is just recognizing that for a pre-million dollar business, you have a lot of opportunity and you require a lot of focus. And so if we were going to do a group program, what we found is that a lot of people who consider themselves pre-million aren't interested in group programs because they've been there, done that. They want someone who's going to work specifically with them in their situation. Or more importantly, they want someone who's going to come in and take work off their plate instead of adding more work to their plate. So we actually, we wrote an article, it was probably published about a year ago, and was 18 reasons you should not create an online course. Because for some businesses, it's a great idea, but that doesn't mean it's the right idea for everyone. And we are an example of a business that had it, made quite a bit of money off of it, but for various reasons, not the least of which was a business model decision, decided that for us to grow, it would require a different path forward.
Wow. That's really cool. Wow. That's quite a big decision. So the book is Beyond Satisfaction, which folks can get at Beyond Satisfaction book. And as we wrap up here, give us one way, Breanne, that we can get started that you haven't shared yet along the journey.
Definitely. So this is an assignment that I've been giving to a number of my clients lately, which was go and find people to talk to. I don't care how long you've been in business. I don't care if you're just starting out or if you've made $1 million or if you're somewhere in between. I want you to go and I want you to find 5 different people that you can talk to. And in fact, on our site, we've got an article, which is 5 different questions to ask in these situations. And I want you to go in without any preconceptions about what you're going to, what the problem is that these people have. I just want you to go and find 5 people that are in the types of people that you serve through your business. And I want you just to have an honest conversation where you do more listening than talking, because this is something that we forget so often. It goes back to the idea of being the sage on a stage versus guide on the side. It goes back to this idea of what do you want to teach versus what do they want to learn. We get so ingrained in our own worldview that we forget that our job is actually to listen first and then to respond with what people need. We need to do more listening. This is great news for the introverts like me who love online business because it means we don't have to hang out with people all day long. But it's good for everyone. If you can spend more time listening, your business growth will be rewarded enormously just by listening to 5 different people.
Awesome. Great advice, doable stuff. Find 5 different people and shut your mouth and listen. Great advice from Breanne Dyck. MNIBconsulting.com is her website. If you want to get a copy of her book, you can go to Beyond Satisfaction book. The book is called Beyond Satisfaction, and she is a course creating genius. And I'm so grateful for the time you gave us today. Thanks, Breanne.
Thank you so much.